Today I'm going to talk purely about the use cases, my top use cases with Supermetrics. When do you need to build Supermetric, and then few of the customer use cases which I have come across. My name is Verghese Philippos. I'm a Principal Technical Adoption Manager, as you call, Principal TAM, based out of the VMware offices in Dubai. I had been with VMware for 12 plus years. And all through these years, I had been working as a TAM, so working with the customers. And so then Aria Operations was one of the key tools which we had been using that. So that's where I had been working a lot with Aria Operations, and especially on the Supermetrics part. Yeah, I finished a milestone of I will complete 25 sessions at Explore tomorrow. This is my 24th session. Also, I had been working closely along with on the Aria Ops side, sustainability part of Aria Ops as well. So VMware Green Score, if you have not used that, that's something which is built in with Aria Operations, which is, I had been working closely with that. Okay, so that's short on me. And the agenda, we'll talk about, as I mentioned, when do you need Supermetrics, and how do you build Supermetric, and then few use cases. That will give you an idea on when you should be using that, right? Now, I just don't want to tell more about Aria, because if you are coming here for Supermetrics, definitely you know Aria Operations, right? Aria Operations is our management platform where we can get to see all the proactive things, all the 5 pillars, what you see: observability, capacity, cost, compliance, and sustainability within that. So when do you need Supermetric? Let's take a step back, right? The power of Aria Ops lies in where not just with the out-of-the-box content, you have a lot of out-of-the-box dashboards, views, reports, everything. But then the powerful factor of Aria Ops is that you can customize it to your own use cases. But then when you try building the custom content, the right approach what you need to look at is mainly 4 points, like target audience. What is that content going to be looked at? Is it to be looked at by the operations team, or is that meant for the management team? Based on that, you can build the kind of a level of depth in that content, right? And then the mode of presentation. Is it basically, it should be a static report or it should be a dynamic? That's when you decide whether you need a report or view or a dashboard, right? And then based on what object? Is it based on the virtual machine? Is it based on the cluster? Whatever objects in there. And then comes, what is the information you need to be published? That is what decides metrics or properties which are there in the object. And if it is not there out of box, that's where you will have to go in with Supermetrics. So that's where we will focus today on that Supermetric part. Now, when do you need Supermetric? Let's take a very simple example, right? You as an admin had been asked to group a particular set of VM. For example, marketing application. We want to show the total cost or whatever metrics related to a particular group of VMs for a marketing application. So you create a custom group and then move all those VMs into that so that you can have one single view of those. Now, your manager comes in and asks you, what are the total vCPUs assigned to the marketing application? So which means all the VMs in that, and then what is the total vCPU assigned? As a VMware Ops admin or Aria Ops admin, what will you do? You will go into the Aria Ops, go into the marketing application and look at the metrics. That's where you will find the total number of VM. But then what you will see is, you don't see any vCPU metrics in there because marketing application is a container object. So it doesn't have the VM level metrics. The VM objects are within the container, right? So you will not see that metric. So now what do, right? So you have the vCPU metric available for the VM object within that group. So that is provision vCPU, you know that. Then ideally you need to be adding that, right? So if you have 100 VM, you need to add all of those metrics of each of those VMs and then get it up to that container object. Now, that's where Supermetric comes in. So you can create that Supermetric where it can go in and add this specific metric and sum of that of all the VMs within that group and come up with that. Now, if you go into a little deep into that, this is how the Supermetric will run. So now, all the VMs, it adds the function. We have the function like sum, count, average, all of those things. This is just an example, right? Sum of that, and then the object. That is the virtual machine. Virtual machine is what is within that group, right? So that's what we are going to look at. And then, of course, the metric. What is the metric you want to look at? The provision vCPUs, count of CPU. So this is how the Supermetric actually works. And then the output of that is stored in the target object, which is custom group. So marketing application we created. Now we have a super metric called total vCPU, and this adds up all and then gets it there. As simple as that, right? So this is how the super metric. When do you need super metric? Like if there is no built-in metric for a specific thing available, you can try looking at that. Now, just summarizing, right? What is a supermetric? It's basically it's a mathematical or logical formula that combines or compares two or more metrics or properties. That's it. So you take whatever you need and then add or do a mathematical operator or logical operator to that, and then gets the output to that. Now, few terminologies you need to look at. You saw in their function, we have a lot of functions built in there in average, sum, count, max, min, all of those things. So we will see few of those things in the examples. And the operators as well, you have the mathematical operators available. And then depth. Depth is, by default, it is 1, which means it will go down and look at the one level, the object one level down where you are applying. So it's a custom group, one level down is VM. So the default value depth is equal to 1 is fine. But if you are looking at from vSphere world, you will have to, and looking at the VM metric, you will have to go down further, probably six levels down. So then you need to add depth as 6. We will get to the examples. When you get to the example, we'll get more clarity on that. Now, creating a basic workflow. If you have worked with Aria Ops since long time, earlier it used to be like a very difficult thing. Like you need to literally type in, key in the formula, all of those things. Now, it has been brought up into the UI. It's a lot more easier. Because I have done it from the very old time itself, so I know how difficult it was and how much it has improved now. So first it will start off with, you just give the name, a title for the supermetric, and then you can select the object. Where do you want to apply? You can apply to multiple objects. In our first example, we selected the container, right? So you can go in and select that custom group or that container object and put it in there, or you can put it to any of the objects. And then this is where you create the supermetrics, where you put in that formula. So now it is like you can type in A, V, G. It pops up all the functions which comes there. So you can drag and put it up there. So it made a lot easier rather than you need to type in everything and it can bring in all things. And then finally it gets to the policy where do you want to apply this, right? The custom group, you don't want to create a supermetric for all the objects. We created for marketing application. We just want it for the container, right? We don't want it to be applied to everything. So don't apply it to the default policy in that case. You can create a specific policy applying to the container object and then apply it there. So that makes it very, very simple, very clear for that. And then you get the supermetric get populating in that particular object itself. Hope that's clear on why, what, and how supermetric. Now let's look at the few use cases, right? All these use cases, I can tell you, like this has been got from the field, from the customers has asked about based on different use cases. So I'm trying to put that use case in here so that you can correlate with how and when you need to use that, right? So first use case was proactive monitoring for performance. So what the customer wanted was critical workloads need to be performed. So there are there are few critical VMs which they want to monitor. And what are the metrics they want to monitor are CPU ready and memory ballooning, because those were critical machines and they don't want, they want to monitor proactively. So now, what do you need to do, right? So within a cluster or a custom group, I want to find what is the maximum value of the CPU ready and memory ballooning within the VMs. And then alert that and bring that and put that as the maximum value. And then I can put an alert. I can put a threshold saying that if it goes beyond 5%, alert me. So that you get proactively alerted on that. So you can see here it could be on a cluster, on a group of VMs. Now, maximum CPU ready among virtual machine, we use the function max, and then the object is virtual machine, and we pick that metric, CPU ready. And you see the depth here, depth is 2. Why? Because I'm going to apply it on the cluster. And if you are looking at the VM metric, then it has to be 2 levels down, because cluster, host, and then virtual machine. That's where the depth comes in. But if I'm applying it to the custom group, I just need depth 1, because custom group and below that is the VM, right? So that is CPU ready. And then again for the memory ballooning, same thing, max, and then virtual machine, and then the metric, and then depth 2 on that. Now, once I have this, I will create an alert based on the output from this. So look at what is the values, and I set up a threshold value. For example, 5%. Above 5% should alert me. So I can put and create an alert, and based on that super metric, and then bring it with that. That's one. Now, another one, SLA metrics for infrastructure team. So this was a pretty old one, but as part of a committed SLA, infra team wants to know that what percentage of their VMs are having CPU ready more than 1%. This is just an example. You can change to 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever thing, but then that is something which they want to. So how do you do this? First, identify the count of VMs having CPU ready more than 1% within a cluster or a group, anywhere, any container, right? So, and then once you know the count of VMs which is having more than 1% CPU ready, you can take a percentage. You know total number of VMs running, right? So this goes in as a SLA metric for that team. So this is basically combining mathematical and logical operators, right? So count of VMs we find, and then divide it by total number of VMs. That gives the SLA metric, right? Now, this is how the super metric will come in. So you say count, and then the virtual machine, and then CPU ready, and depth I put 6 because I can apply this on the vSphere world level as well. So I can get from the whole environment, right? And then we use the where clause here. So where 1%, if it is greater than 1, then that is the count which we will get, and then I will divide it by the total number of VMs and take the percentage. So if you think about it, it's basically like a mathematical operation or logical combination, right? You just need to know how you get to that. That's all, and then you can put this in there. And next one, okay, this was a very common use case earlier, like identify the count of VM with specific guest OS, right? I want to look at it. It's very simple, but then do you have a metric for that? No, there is no direct metric for that, right? So if I want to know what is the total number of Windows VM running in my environment, okay, you can create a custom group and count that, but then there are no direct metric for that. So we can easily do that with supermetric, very simple. I can count virtual machines, and looking at there is a metric which shows the guest operating system, which is basically Microsoft Windows, Red Hat, Linux, or whatever thing, right? So here we are counting Microsoft Windows. So I count the VMs and then look at that specific metrics for guest full name, and says the value, those value which starts with Microsoft Windows. That's it. Or I can use anything, starts with Red Hat or whatever thing you can put. And then once you do that, it goes in and picks up that. So again, we are using the where clause here. Very simple, right? Similarly, we can do the usage, CPU usage metrics as well. So I want to count the virtual machines with CPU usage more than 60%. Very simple, right? Like this is something which you can always have to look at. And again, same thing. We count the virtual machine with the specific metric CPU usage, and then depth is 6, which because I want to apply it to vSphere world, and then value greater than 60. So very simple, right? So again, once you know how to get that, it's pretty simple in building the supermetric in there. Now, we'll go one more level down, right? Now we can count the specific guest OS, but I want to say number of Windows virtual machine and powered on as well. So I'll add one more condition to that, right? So Windows, count of Windows VM, and then the status as powered on VM. So it will count like this. So first thing, we saw that, count the number of virtual machine with the metric value starting as Microsoft Windows, and this is the AND operator, and use the metric as of the powered on as well. So if both of them are satisfied, then it will count that virtual machine. So you can do the same for any other operating system, any other status, all of those things you can combine. Now, again, that was AND operator, right? Windows operating system and powered on. Now this is another one with OR. Like, for example, I want to look at the virtual machines in my environment where the CPU usage is more than 60 or memory usage is more than 60, right? Either of those. So because either you can count the virtual machines with 60% or memory with 60%, but then you can have combine that and say that or with that. Same thing we'll do here. Where clause, where count the virtual machines, where the CPU usage value is greater than 60, or and then the OR operator you can see, and then or the memory usage. So it will count or pick up the VMs with either CPU usage or memory usage more than 60. And these values are changeable, right? I'm just giving the example, so just to, so that's the case. Now, this is where the where clause, where and or factors are used. Now, this is one recent use case which I got. Like, we all know that very less people use RDMs now, but still RDMs are being used. Now, we got a customer where they want to migrate all those RDMs out to the normal VMS. Now, they want to know what is the total capacity of RDMs in there. Now, the problem here is there are no metric for RDM capacity specific. You get to see virtual disk, SCSI 00, SCSI 01. We can get to see the capacity of each of those. But then it doesn't differentiate between RDM or non-RDM. So that's where we want to like make sure that how can we count that, right? So there is a metric called, in each of those SCSI disks, there is a metric called is RDM, yes or no, right? So that's where you know it is an RDM disk or not. So how do you do that is basically, we will first check SCSI 00 whether if it is RDM or not. If it is not, we say they use the capacity as 0 because it's not an RDM capacity, right? And then if it is yes, use that as the capacity, as the RDM capacity. And then again, we will go and check SCSI 01, again same thing. If it is RDM, if it is not RDM, it will again add 0 to that. And then if not, you add that as well. So whichever RDM is there, it will keep adding and then will give you the actual capacity only for RDM. Non-RDM, it will not count. So you can sum it up at that. So this is how that supermetric will come in. You sum, and then this is where you say if or else. If else clause are used. So the question mark and colon, that is if and else. So it says, it looks at the virtual disk, where virtual disk SCSI 00 is RDM equals true. If it is true, then it uses that configured metric, that capacity metric, capacity of that disk. If not, it will take 0. Because if not means it is not RDM. It will be 0. And then you keep adding. Look, the only thing here is how many SCSI 0 disks are there. You need to keep it adding manually. That's the only way of doing it. Okay, so a complex one. Okay, so this came in from one of the service providers where they were maintaining the SLA for the hosts, ESXi hosts. They had like huge number of hosts, and then they were maintaining the SLAs for that. Now, they were bound to have 99.99% availability of the host, right? But then you get to do the maintenance of the host, right? And then you have to take down the host for the maintenance. So that goes in, when it comes into the host availability percentage, it goes down for even with that, right? So what we did was, we created a custom group and said host maintenance and put a custom property into that. Like it's like a tag, custom property saying in maintenance. So before the host goes into the maintenance, we move that into the custom group. Just move it into the custom group in Aria Ops so that it gets attached, that's custom property. And then this supermetric runs where it goes in, looks at if the custom property is there, then it says the host, the availability is 100%. Otherwise, it goes in and looks at this is the supermetric for identifying the host availability of. So this is basically just an exception which we can do in with that. Yeah, there are some weird use cases as well, but then this came in as a challenge, and then we found that. So infra admin teams, there is the managed services who takes care of the customer's environment, and then the infra admin want to monitor when the VM is rebooted. Is the VM rebooted? They always get the alerts, all of those things are there, but still, they want to keep that as a record. So what we identified was like, we can check if VM tools is running or not. If it is running, and then if it is running, then it looks at what is the uptime. So if uptime is less than 300 seconds, which is basically 5 minutes, then alert me. Which means if the uptime is less than 5 minutes, it was rebooted recently, or it was powered on recently. Like, so it's that way they were trying to do that. So what we looked at is, look at the VM tool status is running, where the value not running is there, then it looks at that uptime and give it. Otherwise, it gives the value of 0. Right? it either if it is able to find VM tools running and then the uptime is less than 300 seconds, it alerts because it's just got rebooted, right? So yeah, that's one of the things. And then yeah, this is another one where okay, a particular group of VMs had 4 CPUs, and if the development team, if they want to change something, they're not alerting or letting the infra team know, right? So this is where one of these very simple things where it looks at the CPU, and if the value is not 4, then returns a value like 1 or 0, and then you can create an alert out of it. So you can create an alert out of it, and then it will alert the infra team. So all of these use cases, this is one of my blogs, which was written in 2020, but then still very, very relevant. You can search for this. This is my top 15 vRealize operation supermetrics. All these, whatever I have mentioned, and more than that are there in that blog, and also with the details of that metrics as well. And this is another book. This is an online book, again available, VCF Operations Transformation. This is available in the community.broadcom.com, and you can go and search for this. And there is a separate section on sustainability where we keep updating it as well. It's an online book, and we keep updating with whatever new coming in and all of those things. So key takeaways, what I would say is Supermetric broadened the use cases, right? Like don't just rely on the out-of-the-box metrics itself, because Supermetrics can make it very, very powerful. All these use cases, expanding the use cases, all of those things. Now, these are basically mathematical expression. How simple or complex, it depends on the use cases. That's it, right? So it can be complex, it can be simple, but then how you perceive that, right? How do you write that down and then take it out to the Supermetrics is how we can do that. And you can also see a repository, a full repository of Supermetrics is available in community.broadcom.com. Earlier it used to be code.vmware.com, which is moved in here now. A lot of them are there. Like I can say like at least 500 plus Supermetrics are already there. 500 plus Supermetric, you can go there, look over that, download that, apply that. There are a lot of dashboards, views, all those things in there. With that, that's my time. I finished right on time. Any questions? I'm happy to take it. Sorry. Pardon? Sorry.
Sorry. Can you import or export the super functions?
Name of the?
Import and export then from the system.
Yeah. You can import from that core, that repository. You can import the Supermetric, and then you can directly go into the Aria Ops and then import it there. So it's as simple. So you don't need to really write. You can go into that repository, which I showed, and then from there you can download whatever thing you want, and you can go in directly into your Aria Ops and import it there.
Okay.
Thank you.